Hello, and welcome to UPtime, the podcast from DOTmed Healthcare Business News, where we dig into the issues shaping the medical equipment world. I'm your host, Keri Stephens. Before we get to my conversation with Danielle McGeary, let's start with a quick look at the news. So RSNA just wrapped in Chicago, and even with the storm and all the flight delays, it turned into a very memorable conference. We got the full article on HCB News breaking down the biggest announcements from the major OEMs. And just as a reminder, HCB News is free to read. If you haven't signed up yet, you can register at dotmed.com/news. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle McGeary, Amy's Vice President of HTM, for a fun conversation about career growth and the changing HTM landscape. Danielle, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm always honored to be able to do a podcast with you. So thank you for inviting me back.
It's great. You're one of my favorite people to podcast with. But for start, you've had a pretty unique journey from clinical engineering to leadership at AAMI. So what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in HTM?
Absolutely. I would say you need to learn as much as you can when you have the opportunity. So if you are a student, I would say capitalize on every opportunity to shadow someone at your hospitals, get an internship, volunteer, and just soak in as much as you can. Many folks might not realize, but I started out as a volunteer troubleshooting infusion pumps in the basement of Manchester Memorial Hospital. And I really just worked my way up from there. It was an amazing opportunity. Vinny DeFrancisco, who was the director there at the time, gave me an opportunity because I was interested in applying to UConn's clinical engineering graduate program, but I had no experience in the field and I wanted to make sure it was something that I liked. And then fast forward to getting into that program when I was an intern and graduate assistant at Hartford Hospital, it was just so riveting to be able to do different types of rotations throughout all of the hospital departments under all of the techs. Hartford Hospital had a really large department there. There was over 30 people. So they had techs for the bed shop, techs for respiratory, techs for the OR, infusion pumps. So I was able to really just rotate through all of them and they took me under their wing. I also had the opportunity to scrub into different types of cases to see the equipment in use. And I just really can't recommend that enough for young professionals entering the field or new professionals. They don't necessarily have to be young. They can be learning at any age. But if you're new, just really take the time, even if it means showing up early or staying late. If you're a student, once you're full time and you're really working in the department, you're not going to have time just to show up to an OR case to see a surgical robot in action or a neurobiplane lab in action. You're not going to have time to do that. But I've really found that the more you understand the equipment in use and the clinical aspect behind it, the more the clinicians and the rest of the hospital staff will buy into you because now you're talking clinical talk, and not just only technical talk. And you really understand the criticality of these devices and how they're used on patients.
That's a really good point. And I know Amy's career planning process is all about spotting development gaps. What do you think are the biggest gaps you see with new HTM professionals, and how can they tackle that early on in their careers?
Well, I think the biggest gap is a lack of them, if we really want to back up to that. I mean, we have an aging workforce and not enough people coming into the field to replace them. I think we have a lot of great technical folks in the field, but I think it's really just getting out of just that tech mindset and understanding hospital operations. You need to understand the financial piece. You need to understand the hospital budgeting. You need to understand how to capital plan, equipment acquisition planning. I think there's more than just break fix. And we really need to make sure that our technicians and clinical engineers of tomorrow are really learning that because our jobs are no longer break fix. And when we think of the advent of AI and the democratization of that technology, we're going to be at the forefront of that. And we need to be prepared. We need to we need to be working with risk management departments, patient safety, and really just understanding how multidisciplinary work is so important to the hospital's overall mission and that we can't just be basement dwellers. It's so much more. And I think when we're talking about the training, we have some very technical people, but I think from that more multidisciplinary and larger sense of what we're doing, I think there needs to be some training gap. There are some training gaps potentially there, and Amy's happy to help with that as well.
And how is AB helping with that? I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah, so we have some new training opportunities available. One at the exchange every year, we do a leadership development full day course. It's 8 hours on Friday. We work really closely with Monty and the crew over at the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology, and they really take the lead on that. They teach on everything from change management to leadership development to procurement to customer service. That's actually their most popular class. And it really just hones in on all those other non-technical skills that you really need to be successful. AAMI also offers a lot of training that correlates with our standards. So recently we released EQ 56, which is the medical equipment management plan standard, which also ties in a metric of quality to it. Herman Mackenzie taught that course this fall, and it was so well attended, great reviews, and we're going to offer it again in the spring. And then we also have an EQ 103 course. That's our standard on alternative equipment maintenance. And that course was also offered in the fall and will be offered again in the spring. So we really just want to keep, that continual learning going, really focusing on really elevating the field through high levels of quality in regulatory. And also, I'm also going to be teaching a class starting in 2026 about leadership and career development. It'll be taught by me, and we'll talk about, how you become a leader, even if you think you're an individual contributor. Everyone can lead no matter where they are, and leaders leave the field better than they found it. So we'll talk about things that folks can do to really, um, like some of the things that I've talked about, capital planning, understanding emerging tech, financial acumen, a lot of those different things. And they'll also get office hours with me. So we'll figure out how to do a career development plan and a leadership development plan. They'll put it into action. They'll work it. They'll come back, check in with me, and they'll get real time mentoring with me over 4 to 6 months. So I'm really excited for that as well to really help the next generation.
No, that's wonderful. And I think too, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but one of the biggest problems with the field is people don't know it exists.
Yes.
So people can't go into a field that they're not aware of. And I know you have done such a good job about bringing awareness with HTM in a box. Can you talk more about that? What Amy and specifically you have done to really educate the world that, hey, this is a great field for y'all to go in. You might not have heard of it, but now you do.
Yeah, it's so interesting that people don't really know about it because I think those of us that have found it would never leave. Like, I could not imagine doing anything else. It's the most rewarding thing. I just love it. And I think if people don't, I think I pretty much like spew it from my face, but I just love everything about HTM. But yeah, there is a workforce deficit. I don't think that's shocking to anyone to hear in the field. And we also just recently did a survey jointly with Tech Nation that will be releasing the results soon. But I think what we'll see in that data is that the field retains people really well. It's that pipeline coming in, and I don't want to spoil anything or scoop Tech Nation because we're going to release the results together. But I think talking very generally, we did confirm through that survey that people don't really leave. People are happy with HTM. So we really need to focus on that incoming pipeline, making sure that we have one and that it's diverse and that it covers everyone. So Amy has done a lot of work over the past couple years to really promote HTM. We took out an article in USA Today. We've worked with the National Students Guidance Counselors Association, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, HOSA, which I'll talk more about in a minute. But we did, we saw one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we received from the field is that it takes a lot of time to go and present because of the amount of time people spend having to create a PowerPoint. So we said, well, why don't we create a presentation that is pre-made, canned, and has a consistent message that anyone can use for free? So that's where the idea of HTM in a box came from. It is made in Prezi. It's a very interactive format. It has 3 presentations embedded within it, and it's for 3 very distinct different age groups. So it has a middle school presentation, which is very youthful, excuse me. We have a high school one that really, talks about the technology, things that mean a lot to high schoolers that may really engage them and want them to do this. And we have an adult and career changer one. And what we really want to do is really explain all the different career pathways, whether it's the apprenticeship, a 2-year school, an online school like the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology, and really just get the message out that there's no one way to enter this field and anyone can do this with the proper training and support, and that everyone can be successful here. So, HTM in a Box is free to everyone. It's available at aami.org/HTM in a box. We also created a BMET apprenticeship in 2020 that anyone that's green can enter in. You need to have less than 2 years of experience and no formal degree. So now everyone, regardless of economic status, can enter the field. That's another pathway. And we've also been working really closely with HOSA, the Health Occupation Students Association, which is the future of health professionals. If folks aren't familiar with HOSA, they are an association that is for predominantly high school students that are interested in a career in healthcare. And they have all these different tracks and paths that their high school can pick and focus on. And what they do is they learn a subject matter, like let's say CPR, they learn how to do it well, and then they go and compete at a regional and a state level. And if they do well there and move on, they go to nationals. But as we were kind of looking into this, we found, of course, there was no HTM track. Here are the people that we want to reach, students that we know are interested in healthcare. So we partnered with the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology, Monty and his team, and the folks at AHA, which is American Healthcare Apprenticeships. And we created a BMET track for HOSA. And it just launched in September. We're really excited. And to date, we have over 500 students, and this is with little to no marketing, that high school students that are doing the program and hope to compete. And we have 15 states that are going to run the competition, and we'll have a national competition as well that Monty and I will be there to judge and work with all those folks. So it's very successful so far. We do need more help. Every state does run a HOSA competition, and what this consists of is AAMI has donated our BMET 101 class, and CBET, the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology. I like to say it out. I know I do that a lot. It's probably awkward, but I worry people are going to confuse it with our certification, the CBET, not know which one I'm talking about. So the college also donated their MET 100 course, which is their entry-level BMET course. And students can go in and go through all these materials. And we also included 2D VR videos. So folks can go in and test a defibrillator. They can troubleshoot an occluded line. They can look at changing an X-ray tube. And if you're wondering why it's 2D, it has to be equitable. Not every high school can afford 3D goggles. So we needed to make sure the solutions that we offered could be accessed by everyone. And every high school does have a computer and Wi-Fi. So that is why we went with 2D VR and not the full 3D version. And then they learn, and then they come and they test. So what we need from the field is that at these state level competitions, people may have questions about HTM. What is it? Or parents that want to learn more for their child that may be interested. So we need folks to help staff these booths because obviously Monty and I can't be everywhere. So we are so excited. This is such a great pathway. HOSA reaches about over 500 high school students a year. So it's an amazing opportunity. That's not to say every high school in the country is going to choose the HTM track, but something's better than nothing. And before we started this in the fall, no one had an HTM track. So now we have some high schools that are doing it, and over 500 students that have visited our that have reached out through HOSA. So it is just very, very exciting.
No, that's so exciting. Congrats. And it's funny because I was actually about to ask, how can people get involved? And you told us. But my next question is, so I know what Amy is doing, and y'all are doing an amazing job promoting the field, but how can healthcare organizations do a better job of supporting the growth of HTM so that, they stay ahead of this rapidly changing field, especially with AI, cybersecurity? I mean, there's so much going on in the field right now.
Yeah, so I always say leaders leave their field better than they found it, and leaders constantly give back. So I would say healthcare organizations just get out there, connect with your local high schools. There's a lot of people that do this really well, like Brian Hawkins, Chase Torres, Justin Barber, and they're very public about it. And I think we all can do it. I mean, I think Bryant talks to talks to kids like 40 hours a week, or it seems like it by the amount of students that he reaches. And we do a lot of work up here in New England too, with all of the local colleges and high schools. But like I said, if everyone that's listening to this goes out and gives one presentation a year, and we've done the work for you, think of how many more students we can reach. And I think the local hospitals know their local high schools. They know their local tech schools. They know the local 2-year colleges. And I think it's really important to just get out there and get in front of them. I mean, they have the equipment. They can bring in a dog and pony show and really show it off. And I really think that it's everyone's job to really give back in that way and really touch that next generation. And it's not that hard. Most schools have a STEM club, or there's a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop. I mean, I recently just presented to my daughter's Girl Scout troop about hospital construction, and where obviously they're in first grade, they're 6, so we don't go too in depth, but we talked about the importance of wearing hard hats and PPE and safety, and how it keeps you safe, and how you wear these everywhere, whether it's hospitals, industrial places, schools. And it's just really important to really, start this young. And, we have the influencers that have written children's books. There's so many options on how you can do this and give back, and so many resources out there. So I would say, for folks that think it's hard, it's really not. And if you need help, please reach out. Amy's happy to send you career brochures, swag. We do it all the time for people who ask. And you can easily reach me at htm@amy.org.
No, thank you. And I'm sure people will reach out from this, so I appreciate it. So, switching gears, I want to know where you think the industry is headed. So, where do you think HTM is headed the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, we don't have crystal balls, but if you could just put on your crystal ball hat.
I mean, I think we're going to see a revolution with AI. It's really going to change HTM. And I actually just gave a keynote about this in Florida at the Florida DOTmed meeting. And I think when we think of a technology that's out there that basically democratizes, right? It's given information from us, from the general population within healthcare. And and I think it's really going to affect us in multiple ways. It's not going to replace us. It's just going to change how we do our jobs. When we think of things like predictive maintenance or generative AI, in the sense of looking at big pieces of hospital data in the EHR to help guide clinical decisions. I think we really need to be at the forefront of this. We need to have robust quality checks. We need to be working in multidisciplinary teams with hospital leadership to really make sure we have checks and balances. Because while this technology has the ability to do so much good, it can do really bad if it's not. If it doesn't go right. We think of things like skewing data. If you are a hospital that predominantly only sees, a Caucasian population, when you look at big data, your data might be incidentally biased, right? When you look at things like, I was at a webinar with a vendor recently, and they have new AI predictive models for detecting breast cancer. So if you do a scan and your breast tissue looks a certain way, it'll flag it and say, this type of breast cancer, this type of breast tissue in, 90% of women may be indicative of breast cancer. So look at this one first. This one needs to be read first. It's more critical. But again, when you look at these different patient populations, maybe in someone of a different ethnicity, that breast tissue might not be indicative of breast cancer, but in Caucasian women, it may. So it's our job to make sure that it's ethical and there's no incidental bias in the system. So we need to constantly be checking and making sure that we're actually are improving outcomes, and it is catching things, and we're not seeing that it's missing things. I think the other piece that really is we really need to be at the forefront of is going to be integrating new AI systems with the existing antiquated technology that's already in the hospital. Every hospital has it, right? We have outdated technology. I mean, there's hospitals out there that still have devices running on Windows XP. And just as a side note, if you have a capital plan, I'd put those high up for replacement on your capital plan, because it is a security vulnerability. But with that, I think the integration with antiquated devices is going to, because it's not a one size fits all. And cybersecurity is going to be huge. I was at the Virginia Biomed Association meeting, and a CIO came in and spoke, and he said he asked the audience, who's a cybersecurity threat? And like everyone was kind of quiet, and he pointed at um into the audience and said, every single one of you is a cybersecurity threat. And I was like, wow, I've never really thought about it that way, but it's true, right? You have a bad actor that just fools the right person. Even if you even if you're good 99% of the time, it just takes one of us to get tricked once, and now, we're vulnerable. And when you think of AI now, those bad actors are really changing. They're more and more, I think, are more and more susceptible to be tricked. And when you think of agentic AI, now you have computers hacking into our systems, and our existing cybersecurity systems just are not ready to handle that. So we got to relook at how things are set up and really anticipate what's going to come next. Because while cyber has predominantly attracted, um, it has been attracted to EHRs more so than the devices, that could change when we start moving forward. So hospitals as a whole, we really need to be prepared from a cybersecurity perspective, and really be thinking now, how is AI going to really affect this? Because it is happening. There's been some huge cybersecurity attacks recently with through agentic AI. Um, so I really think AI is going to be critical. And I think also educating your staffs, getting education from vendors, having vendor transparency about what you're really acquiring and the risks of acquiring it, and also really just spearheading these. There should be AI committees at your hospital, but if there aren't, help spearhead one. And if there is, make sure HTM has a seat at that table, because it is gonna affect us. And I think on a positive side, it's gonna really improve patient care when we think of our jobs day to day, because when you think of like predictive maintenance and predicting failures, now we're not working in an emergency. If the device can self-regulate and say, I'm going to fail, or, this component of me failed, and typically when this component fails, that means this component B fails in a month. Now we know, and we can make better decisions, and we're not scrambling. And that really comes down to better equipment uptime, which ultimately affects patient care and patient throughput and patient access.
Well, that was an excellent answer. And because my podcast, with Uptime Podcast, the last question I ask every guest is, what is keeping you up at night in regards to your field? And I'm guessing it might be some of the things you just mentioned, but especially going to 2026, what is keeping you up at night?
Oh, everything, Keri. I mean, my mind runs constantly. But I think, the pipeline, making sure we have a strong pipeline, really thinking about AI, how it really affects us. And I think for me, how Amy and myself can continue to support the field in the best way possible. Because, like you said, the field is changing, so we must evolve with the field. We need to find solutions that meets the field where it is. So we always want to make sure what we're putting out is what the field needs. I'm here for the field. Amy is here for the field. And, and that's really what keeps me up at night. How can we do better? What can we do more? What do they need? So with that, please know you can always reach out to me directly. I am happy to hear you out. We might not be able to do everything all the time, but if we're getting reoccurring themes and reoccurring messages from the field, everything we do comes from suggestions from the field, just like the BMed apprenticeship, the HTM in a box, education around our standards. Everything comes at a request, and we're here for you. And that's really my key message. So that's what keeps me up at night, is making sure that we are serving the field as best as we can possibly serve it.
Thank you, Danielle. And if you want to, please give a final plug for your 2026 career resource. I'd love to hear more about that.
Like, I don't really have a plug yet because the registration's not up and I don't have dates, but I will be teaching a course that'll probably launch around March. So be on the lookout for it. Because I mean, to me, one of my favorite parts of this job is working with is the professional development piece, working with the next generation in the new HTM professionals. I don't think there's anything more rewarding than helping mentoring folks and really seeing them succeed. So when my class launches, hopefully you'll sign up for it. I'd love to see you and meet you and help you on your HTM career journey.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. This was a great conversation as always. And to our audience members, thank you for listening. And stay tuned for more stories shaping the HTM field with Uptime. Thank you.
Thanks, Keri.